Hello, hello, welcome back to Nosey's podcast with me, Melissa. In this week's episode, we'll be discussing about money. And in particular, we'll be talking about money personalities. What does it mean to pay yourself first? And how much should you pay yourself? Investing. What investments are open and more friendly to entrepreneurs? And a lot more topics. And I'm so excited to be joined by Winnie Machaki of the Financial Lens. It's a financial literacy program for young professionals, and she'll be sharing a bit more practical and relatable financial tips for us creatives and self-employed people at large, people who don't have a steady means of income. How can we multiply our money given the little resources that we have? I really hope you can take something from this episode, and let me know if there are any other questions you might want to ask much later, but stick around until the end because there is an announcement that I'd love to make around the same. And without further ado, let's get to it. But thank you so much for taking your time to come and speak on today's topic. I must say I'm very honored to be the first, I guess, to get information about financial management. So I guess before we begin, you can just at least give us your background and how you got to come up with your financial literacy program, Finance Lens. I think we can start from there.
Okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity also. I'm delighted to really do the podcasts, and especially when you told me the target group for it, and I was like, this is it. I, on part-time basis, work with Finance Lens, and it's an organization we founded with my husband to mainly empower and enlighten, specifically those two words, empower and enlighten couples in marriage. And because that's where we began our knowledge of finances consciously, trying to get our way through around, during courtship and dating, we talked about finances, but we didn't quite have it all together until we found ourselves in 1 hour session somewhere about finances, and the person was very clear on the how to. We grabbed that on and we came up with our own vision plan as a couple and worked with it together, gearing up towards being financially free. And it was quite a journey. It required a lot of sacrifice and a lot of denial of different things just to ensure that we were able to achieve our goal within a certain timeline. And between 6 and 7 years, we were there. And so with that, we were like, how many people have this information? How many people actually get to understand their finances beyond money from a young point of view to be able to carry it on into their marriage? And so from there, we began talking to people, especially in premarital counseling. We would offer to share our experience and all that. And last year, October, Finance Lens was born.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So now targeting not only couples, but also young professionals, because one way or another, in a few years or so, they'll find themselves getting married. I mean, it's somehow the trend. And even if they are able to live a life where they have a bit of peace financially.
Okay, that's quite something. I really did actually appeal to that, especially now when we're in this age and we're trying to get settled really fast, especially for in the creative community that I am in. Most of us are just self-employed, and we don't really know the direction to take. And especially like creatives, we're not taught financial literacy as much, but we want to be in that position where we no longer need to rely hand to mouth. So I really do wanted to, especially the time I attended the seminar that you had organized, I really got enriched from the information that you gave, and I wanted to share with the rest of my friends in the creative community, and especially now that a lot of things are coming up, and well, let's just say employment is just really difficult to get, even just as a creative, because there's so much competition. So I guess you'll take us through some of the few things that you want to share. I think we can start from.
Probably one place I always want to start with people, and especially when I'm starting a session, is to really take them through a path back of asking themselves, what is a healthy relationship? And how do you define a healthy relationship? Because the principles cut across. If you're looking at a healthy relationship, even with a friend or towards marriage, it's something that is committed, that you're accountable to each other, that you're not looking at it from a short run point of view, but a long run point of view. It's something that carries itself with some specific values. There's discipline within that. And once people are able to outline that, I ask them, so what is your relationship with money? Is it healthy or is it not healthy?
Is it not healthy? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're able to ask yourself, what is it? And
Mm-hmm.
probably to begin is to talk about some of the money habits that we tend to have, that people even don't realize that they have them. When you get money, and of course, in self-employment, it's where you're not assured on a monthly basis there is specific amount of money coming in. It's probably on a there's this week you get money, next week you don't get money, like that. But immediately you get money, what you do, what comes to mind, and how do you handle that money? Because at the same time, it's very the money comes in very quickly, but if it doesn't have the real objective that it needs to have with it before even it came, then you'll tend to just use it, and then the next day you're like, where did all the 300,000 that I got go?
Yeah, and I think most of us, I can speak for myself. Sometimes when you get into a world of cash, the first thing is to, like, for me, I would think of an equipment I can buy, even though it's not really necessary, instead of thinking how can I possibly multiply and earn more.
Yeah, yes.
Mm.
And the first principle, actually, because I remember also talking, and you asked me about a question around what do business people do when they get an income? What is the first thing they should do?
Yeah.
But in principle, actually, even in the creative first is the passion. Then once you start earning from it, that means it becomes a business.
Yeah.
And with that, there's the need. The first key principle is to learn how to separate business money and personal money. I have had a nephew who has been doing design for quite a while. And there's one day I was like, so are you able to pay your bills? He's like, yes, yes, yes. There are a few things I also want to do. So there's a few coins I'm waiting for somebody to pay me. Then I'm able to do that. And I was like, wait a minute. So is that business money or is it personal money?
Right.
Yeah. And so I think that's the first most important thing. As the word of money comes in after a job you've done, probably you accomplished it like in a month or so, 2 months down the line, that money comes. There is the understanding of how much of this is actually mine and how much of this needs to go back to the business, because the business needs to expand anyway and also needs to have a life of its own.
Yeah.
So that is the first thing. Then now there's the aspect of this money that is mine, how do I make use of it to ensure that it's not just for now, it's even for tomorrow and the other day and the years that I will not be able to have the strength to do what I'm doing today.
I think, yeah, that says a lot about how we think of money, especially when you're talking about how, separating business money from personal money. Sometimes we tend to eat into it. usually aware that we need to save some, but at the same time, we really don't understand. We need to feed our businesses in order for them to feed us back even twice fold. So I do understand that scope.
Yes.
I think we can go to the money archetypes, money personalities, because I do understand many people spend money in different ways according to probably how the environment we came up from. So if you can expound on that.
Yeah. We usually look at it from factors that help us in making money decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and in large, we look at it and we expound on how did you grow up seeing money being handled in the family that you grew up? Was money something that was talked about quite often? Did you see a budget? Did you not see a budget? Did you hear of one? Or did you just find yourself flowing around? You know, we used to say African father and mother, I don't have money whenever you requested for money. And
Mm-hmm.
therefore that somehow defines how unconsciously or consciously you will find yourself handling money. The
Right.
other bit is also your personality, the temperament that you can also when you're to expose itself.
Yeah, the temperament.
And that's why
Yeah.
you sometimes you'll hear people say you can tell about this guy when he has money and when he's broke, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
behavior you tend to have
Yeah. For
when
sure.
you have money and when you don't have money.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people
Yeah.
know, and people
Mm.
know when to be around you, and
Yeah.
especially if you're the one who spends when you have it to make everybody feel merry and happy, then they
Mm-hmm.
can tell quite clearly when you have it and when you don't have it. And those are some of the temperaments that we carry with us. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, there's also the social dynamic, which has really grown now. I mean, there's a social media which will keep on showing you, even when others are working, there are people on holiday.
Yeah.
Even when others are complaining about not having money, there's somebody who's moving to a bigger apartment and in
I
the
mean,
suburb areas and
yeah,
all
the other
that.
day I
Mhm.
had seen someone had posted on Twitter, some guy had shown a receipt of I think almost half an M he had spent in a hotel restaurant, and it's like in the middle of
Overnight.
February.
Wow, wow.
And then they
Yes. And
go
therefore,
on
there's
Twitter
that
and say there's no
pressure.
money. Yeah.
There's that pressure, and there's the want to compare with yourself, even around your friends.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so real. Eh,
Yes, yes. So
yeah.
all these are dynamics that then come in and they try
Mm,
to play themselves into defining how you handle money. And therefore, even the personalities that we look at money, then they drive themselves from these. And therefore, you will have somebody who, because of status, they will only want to buy something that is a designer. And there's nothing wrong with buying the designer, but what money are you using to buy that? You know,
yeah.
there's this other person who, whether there's sales anywhere, they find themselves there. Nothing wrong with taking advantage of sales, but had you planned for it? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there are those who are extreme savers. Them, every coin they get, they save to a point that they can deny themselves even the little pleasures that come with life, you know.
The
Then we
misers.
have those who, yes.
Yeah.
Then there are those who are lovers of debt. They know Fuliza, they know
Puliza, Mshwari.
all that. They know about them. And they're never afraid. They never think twice about it. I mean, they have something, their friends are going to Naivasha. I don't have money. Let me just Fuliza. And they go. And the thing is that what it is all about? You know? And these four, there's nothing wrong with any of them. The only aspect is how are you approaching them? How are
Mm-hmm.
you approaching them? Because if you become an extreme of one than and not balance, then you tend to starve yourself on your future life where money is concerned. Then, of course, we have the investor, the person who is keen to invest and keen to put something aside for the future, and he's able to balance his life across the other personalities. And everybody, of course, strives to be there because it's the ideal.
Yeah.
It's the ideal personality. Yes. A lot of research has been done around that. So I would encourage people even to read around that and just ask themselves, where are they at? And what do I need to balance,
Yeah. So again, just to state the four personalities, we have the miser. We can say that.
There are different names that have been called for different ones, but they will always mean the same. But we have the spender, a debtor, we have the saver, and then we have the investor.
So spender, debtor, saver, and investor. Okay. I think we're done with the money personalities. I think that's pretty clear for everyone. I think we can just place ourselves. Is there any way that someone can be like a combination of like maybe two of those personalities? Can that even be possible?
Yes, it is possible. It is possible. Mainly, you will hear the people will say they have a primary and then they have a secondary one. But the primary will always scream if you don't bring in the secondary one. And that's why it's important for someone to be able to balance, because even being a saver and only a saver is not right. There is the daily needs that you need. There is the daily, a bit of little pleasure that you'll need once in a while. So also being an extreme of one and not the other is not also very good.
So you mean to say that now, since you say there's the primary and then the secondary, it means that someone is not just given that like personality from the get-go. They can actually just balance out either or.
Yeah, and in our sessions, actually, we have templates that we take people through to just identify themselves through the different factors that I talked about. And now currently reflecting and being able to ask yourself, so what have you been? Since you started earning your own money, which you can say this is my own money, what have you more likely reflected out with your relationship with money? Because then you're able to see clearly, this is where I am. That's why I have no savings. This is where I am. That's why I have all these brands, designers, but I have nothing that I can call, in case something happens to me, that I can be able to fall back into. And it's quite a good reflective, because then someone is able to say, okay, now I see clearly what I have been doing, what has been happening. So this is where I need to start at. And it's quite helpful. It's quite helpful. Yeah.
Okay. And okay, there's some people I've encountered, some who I've worked with, who would say, let's just, to put it in short, fake it till you make it. Rather, they'd spend their money in order to fit in and get sort of those connections, but at the end of the day, they find themselves still in the same position. So I think that brings me to the second part, is why do we find ourselves spending all that we earn and not like now putting it into, there are those people who are just compulsive. Why do we find ourselves just spending all that we earn?
There are various reasons why, from a personal point of view, but mainly I would generally say it's one, not being conscious of their finances. And it can be led by being able to comparison where you want to fit in, as you've said. So my friends, all of them live in this estate. I have to also fit in there and live in this estate. So with my 70,000, I would rather go and pay that house the 60,000 that it is, the apartment, to be able to be seen that I am doing well. Therefore, what happens? If you're looking at one note that is made of even 70,000 and already the rent is 50, food is taking like 20, then you will find you're living beyond what you're even able to sustain yourself with. And at the same time, then you deny yourself any future emergencies that come in. So one is comparison, and I usually say comparison is a virus because it denies you the happiness that you should have and the contentment that you should have at the place where you are at. The other one is lack of know-how. Financial literacy, I mean, in our country is still a big gap. It's one of the areas that has not really been captured in our education system, and therefore people grow. All of a sudden you're in college, you're getting pocket money. Then all of a sudden you get a job and you're earning this salary. Yes, there are bills to be paid, but no one has really ever sat you down to tell you, you know what, you're looking for a house. This is the salary that you're getting. Please don't look for a house that is this amount. Try and, divide your money into these sections that you can be able to fit in and be able to have a bit of peace. Therefore, you don't live in debt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because most people are likely to be in debt and more debt and more debt. Therefore, people who they're likely to be in debt, the job you do in arts that comes in, the first thing is to pay a few of the debts and pay a few of your bills. Therefore, you're left with debts. You've paid bills, but there's still more bills to be paid.
Right.
And therefore, this person is living from one debt to another. It's not even from one paycheck to another anymore. It starts being from one debt to another debt to another debt.
Right. And what is your take on now, like, like most of the time, like there was a report I was reading. They were doing a survey on creative enterprises in Kenya, basically on the financial area of it, where creatives tend to they have bank accounts, but they tend to borrow a lot from digital lending apps like Shwari, M-Pesa, and all those others. Is it a safe bet to do? Like, is it a good thing to take loans, especially when you're just starting off in infancy with your business? Is it a safe bet to go forth and do that just in the name of trying to earn more, pay the debt, and then come back and then take another loan? Like, is that a good decision to make?
I would say yes and no. From a point of first, the mobile loans are very readily available because they're unsecured. Request and fill in a few of the details that they need. I want to imagine that. And you have a certain amount of fill in of money that pops up. Now, if you didn't have a plan of how to make use of that money, or even the money that you would get from the bank, um, then you will tend to misuse this money. And at the end of it, you will find that even in the business that you were starting, you're likely now to want to borrow more because the time for repayment of this loan has begun. There has been no return, probably. And you're at a place where you're not quite sure how your break-even point, at what point you'll have your break-even point. For any business, there's a point for borrowing if there's a necessity to. But it should be in a way that you've calculated your risk and you've calculated your path to earning that money and that your business is able to repay it back. Otherwise, if that is not quite clear, then I would ask someone to first hold on and start as small as they can be to start growing their business to a point where there is a bit of, not necessarily an assured way, but a
Consistent way.
of an income, then I think probably I need this much that I have been able to come up with a plan, and there's a level of where it will, there will be a return of this, which is not very assured. So at any point, a loan, of course, becomes a risk, and a big risk at that matter.
Okay. So I get it now. It depends. Okay, so I think the next question now would be you have your business and it's still starting off, but I remember you had talked about if your business has not picked up after a certain time, you should just take it to the garage and shoot it and die, and die. Could you expound on that?
I usually wouldn't go with this to the bank because businesses, of course, are. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, when you look, if we were to look 5 years back, if you had a 5 years plan, which was probably the fifth year would be 2021, and on the third year, COVID came, then you realize that that plan would completely have had a total upside down.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
by that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of uncertainty in the business. And I think where I want to focus on is taking advantage of the good years or the good seasons, the opportunities that you take, taking advantage of that to be able to save as much as possible, to be able to cushion both the business and you, the business owner, when it rains, like when pandemic comes, because then it makes it easier for one to unknown seasons. So probably it's a business that began in 2018, for example. And the first year it was, floating a bit and sinking a bit in the ocean. And probably on the second year, you're able to now have a clear path of where you're going. For the people who are able to take advantage of the 2019 and probably saving as much as they could, even as the tide started hitting in 2020, they at least were able to survive for a certain time. Yeah. And it's the same even with our own personal money, because it's not just business, even with our own personal money. For people who probably had an emergency fund, because we have quite a big number of people that lost their jobs, they were able to survive the tide for quite a while, maintaining their lifestyle, than someone who had nothing, who was relying on a paycheck to paycheck, So it's a similar approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the emergency fund, I remember you had given the definition, but for those who don't understand what an emergency fund is, could you kindly explain just a little bit, and how much should that fund be amounting to?
I'll start by saying it doesn't have a specific figure, but it is based on your lifestyle. Mainly the expenses that one has on a monthly basis, because we are still a nation that is more on monthly basis. So mainly it's recommended that at least based on the monthly expenses that one incurs on every month, that you're able to estimate that amount and be able to save up an equivalent of that amount for 6 good months, minimum 6 months. Because then, which is quite unlikely now, but then it's because it was estimated that it will take you between 3 to 6 months to reestablish yourself should something come up. Also, in case of an emergency that then you had not foreseen completely, then you're able to comfortably cover it and be able to still not be shaken on your normal life for at least 6 months.
At least 6
So
months.
that's what we look at as an emergency fund.
Okay. So I think now we can move on to the next question. Now that we have the money, we've gotten our paychecks, and we have our paycheck, we've gotten our salary or reimbursement or whatever you can call it. Where can we channel this money, or how can we manage this money? How can we channel it?
All right. So I'll focus on the personal money
Okay,
because
that's
one
fine.
already understands how much they're paying themselves from the business, because that's where they're earning from. So the first advice we give is pay yourself first. And paying yourself first then is the attribute that helps you understand what life and at what level then should my other expenses be. But before even you pay yourself first, before you even get that money, set an objective. Base an objective of what do you want with your money? If your money comes, what is it ideally, both short-term and long-term goal is for you, where your money is concerned? Then that way you're able to understand what amount do you need to pay yourself first, and what amount do you need to pay others? Because literally in an urban center where every other bill has to be paid, you're paying other people. You're literally paying your landlord, you're literally paying Kenya Power, you're paying Safaricom with the airtime, you're paying so many other people. And it's very likely, if you don't have a set objective, to find that you've paid everybody else except yourself. What do we mean by paying yourself first? Because that's one place that I've found people not quite having a different array of what they think is paying yourself first. It simply means before you pay anybody else, ensure that you've covered your future. Set aside a certain amount of money that you put into long-term savings and later probably into long-term investments, that then you can say, this is the money that I have, even when I'm paying everybody else. Then it becomes easier.
Okay, so that means when I get the payment, correct me if I'm wrong, I should wait fast before I pay the salaries, or
employees are not your personal money.
yeah.
Employees are part of the business staff, so they are being paid by the business money. And that's why I say the first key principle that I always encourage people is separate what is yours with what is the business.
Okay.
By a business that has been in for 2 years, you already understand the trend and the frequency of how much you get within a certain given time. Then what have you set is your salary for your staff? What have you set is your salary for yourself as part of the staff of that business?
Okay.
Now, that salary, that's what we are talking about. Because it is your money. The business has its money. You've separated your money from the business. So that personal money is what we are talking about.
Okay.
And I believe I'm trying to reach out to people who have the integrity to tell themselves, you know what, even if the business this year brought 20 million, I had already said this is my salary, so I don't need to start showering myself with more money.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly, yes. So there's a bit where also you need to be disciplined where business money is concerned.
You don't eat into the money. Yeah. I do actually get that. Yeah.
Yeah, put an auto standing order from your bank that takes that money to a different bank that you cannot easily just get into, to a different account. And it can be, even if it's not a different bank account, then it can be even a circle. Put a standing order where you've identified a circle that you give this certain amount of money as your long-term money savings into this circle, such that by the time your salary hits your account, not the business account, now from the business account to your account, that money automatically goes. So you're left with a certain other percentage now to work with your other expenses and any other needs that you have. But at least you ensured that your future is secured.
So priority is on the future.
Yes.
Okay, I think, yeah,
which is very hard. When we get money, the first things we want to do is what? Pay the landlord.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Ensure that we have electricity. Ensure we have paid the water. We have bought ourselves some, burger to tell the body pole pole. And we have fueled the car. We have, you end up paying everyone else because that's what you've done. You've paid the landlord, you've paid Kenya Power, you've you've literally paid everyone else, such that you're left with nothing, even for yourself. And I don't think it needs to be that hard. I don't think life needs to be that hard, that where we're paying everyone else and we are not securing our future.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, I get it now. When it comes now to the business, you have to put business expenses now for taking care of the business operations, and then there's now paying yourself and for your future. I think now that makes sense.
Yes, yes.
So I think we've covered most of the questions. I think the last one would be now investments, and I think this one most of us are getting into with cryptocurrencies, be it SACCOs, be it money market funds, whatever it is. If I wanted to start investing, what investments are more open and friendly for someone like me, someone just, trying to build up?
All right. I can't point it to exactly one and say this is it, but
Mm.
what I would say, investments now, unlike before, I think when I was starting, they've become quite versatile, but at the same time, they're very personal. I've encountered people who are like, hey, this is risky. I can't do it. I'm risk averse. I don't like investing. What if my money disappears and everything? So I really encourage people, even what you personally feel you want to pursue in terms of investment, do a bit of research around it, because right now they're quite versatile. There's forex trade, there's money market, the stocks still are there. Our time we were dealing with stocks quite so.
Treasury bills and bonds for those bigger ones, big boys.
Yes, and there is the crypto, also the bitcoins, and now we have even the NFTs that have now started coming up. So there's a lot to invest in. But I always tell people, start with what you're comfortable with, and start with what you're initially comfortable to lose. Because at the end of the day, investment is a risk. And the higher the risk, the higher the return. That's definitely. But of course, there are those that are quite secured. We have quite secured investments like the treasury bills, the treasury bond, but the fact that they are governed by the government, I mean, you're assured you will not lose your money. But of course, you cannot compare that return with probably money markets or forex trade, because forex trade, you will, if you invest quite huge, you might be lucky the next day and you get quite a lot, but you can also lose that huge. So there's that dynamic of looking at the risk and how much do you want to invest in, and are you willing to lose it if it is that risky?
Right.
Yeah. And there are very good investment advisors that we currently have that are able to guide people one-on-one on, okay, we can start here, even with as little as 1,000 shillings. Let's start here. And they're able to guide one slowly to being, familiar with the different ventures that are currently there.
Okay. I think it was good information, to be honest.
Maybe what I can say is there's always a starting point with money, and there's always that turning point where you realize, okay, I've not been doing what I need to do. And I always encourage people to start with just a few goals of what do they want to be, and especially in the next 1 year to 5 years, what is it that you aspire and you dream to have? And then when you have that target with you, then work towards your income and ask yourself, so how do I ensure that I'm able to attain this? So that, what does that mean? What does that look like? And it can be as sacrificial as even moving houses. If you're living in a house that is already more than a certain percentage of your income, you will inevitably have to move, because then that means all that money that you're earning and you're really working hard for, you're working it for the landlord, not for yourself.
Yeah.
And therefore having those goals then put you into a discipline measure where you're able to say, okay, I think I need to correct a few things in my life. I think I need to be able to tell my friends, you know what, I cannot be able to go to Naivasha every weekend or every month with you. I'll be able to do it only every 3 months. I am not able to buy a car at this time because I don't think it's a priority. These are my priorities. And it gives you such a clear understanding of how to relate with your money. And from there, you're able to really cultivate some peace around how you handle your money and how also it handles you. Because then you'll not be passing by Pizza Inn and it starts telling you, know what, can we enter? Can we enter? This pizza looks very nice.
Yeah.
Or this shoe,
Certain
people
type
with
of stuff.
weaknesses of shoes. Yeah, this shoe looks very nice. So can we enter, please, and buy it? You already have 3,000 in your pocket. Let's just get in. Then you start realizing, no, this 3,000, it's not for this. It is for ABCD. It already has an objective by itself. And so when you're seated with it, you know that it's supposed to be streamed in a specific way. And therefore, you're left with only what that then you can say, okay, this is for me to eat a bit of half a pizza. And I can only do this twice a month or once a month. This is for me to be able to buy airtime. And this is the only airtime that I can be able to buy, it gives you a different dynamics of to be conscious of the money you get in. Because I keep telling people, today you're 20, the next day you're 40, and eventually you become 60 and you retire, or even if you retire at 70, and retirement is much more brutal without money.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
way brutal without money. Yes.
Yeah, and even in a country that we live in, and our government institutions that are supposed to take care of our retirement funds are not doing the necessary, we need to take it in our own hands to plan for our retirement.
Very true. Very true.
I think that's it on my part. Before we conclude, there is an online seminar that Finance Lens is currently holding. Do you kindly expound on that and give our audience a bit of what is going to come?
Oh, yes. We have our first season 2022 seminar that is coming in on the 25th of February. That's when we're beginning with. It's a Friday, so it's in the evening at 7:30 to 9:30, and the following day on Saturday for people who love morning at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And it's a start of taking people to a journey of being exactly what I think I was describing, the aspect of being financially conscious of your finances, and for people who are now willing to really work around their money. And therefore, we'll be having interactive online sessions where we'll share quite some guiding principles and look at different approaches that apply for every person as an individual and at the point where they are at, whether self-employed or employed, and be able to guide people to now a vision of working towards being financially free. So I would request people to go to our Facebook. You just look for Finance Lens and you'll be able to see the link there that then you can be able to register and choose your preferred time. And then we will be able to engage more when we start the sessions.
And I'll also put it in this episode's description, wherever you're watching it, YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcast, you'll find it there. And is there a specific age group that it's targeted to?
Not quite. Any single person who is earning and wants to manage their money better, because we will later be having sessions for married couples, which we've been holding before, but we had not gotten into social media. So that will be beginning around March, mid-March. And at that time, then we'll be able to encourage married couples who also desire to do better on their finances. Then they'll be able to enroll at that time, and they can be able to also walk that journey with us.
Okay, you had it, guys. Thank you so much for taking your time again and educating me. I think I've learned a lot again, and even what you had taught before, I've even understood much better.
Looking forward to having you guys there.
Okay, thank you so
Looking
much.
forward.